Good morning.
It is.
I'm a little nervous. This is very personal. My mother departed on April 3rd this year. The DVD on From Grief to Joy has been very, very helpful, very beneficial. Help me love my brother more. I have some reason to believe papers were drawn to leave me excluded from the normal financial benefits. I have used your teachings to love my brother, and I have gotten much benefit from that. I just want to love him more, given the circumstances.
You heard us earlier talking about our conversation with a woman who said, "My lover left and now I'm sad."
Yes.
And so we want to say to you, it isn't that you want to love your brother more. It's that you want to stop using him as your excuse not to be in the vortex.
Okay, help me do that.
Well, it would be easier to teach you to focus on other things. In other words, you don't have to change the way you feel about someone in order to be in the vortex. You just have to use the power of your focus to focus upon things that allow you to be in the vortex. Now, we know that you would feel so much better if you loved your brother, because who you really are does. And the thing about someone like your brother is that it's hard not to think about them. And so the question is, would it be easier for me to not think about him at all or to love him? And the answer is, it would be easier for you at this time to not think about him at all than to love him, because you have your mind made up about some things. In other words, we said earlier, we're not asking you to look at unwanted things and call them wanted. We're not asking you to look at things that are unpleasant or inappropriate or downright wrong and call them right. We're not asking, that's a big stretch to make. What we're asking you to do is to care enough about how you feel to find a way of lining up with who you really are unconditionally, regardless of what the condition is. And what we've noticed is that when someone wants it as much as you want it, that they always find a way to bring it about. We watch Esther. There'll be something, or there was something that was upsetting to her, and she spent the better part of 3 years cleaning her vibration up until it reared its ugly head again. And then she got so she would laugh as she said, "Well, I guess I really haven't got that cleaned up yet." And what we want you to understand is that there's always going to be something that you can use as your excuse not to be in the vortex. And you have to just relax and laugh about it and not worry about it, and just get in the vortex as much as you can on subject after subject, and really not make such a big thing. In other words, you're making a big thing. I want you to help me love this person that right now I have no real reason to love. So I would like you to give me enough information that makes me love this unlovable person. And what we want to say back to you, sort of flippantly, is that that's paramount to changing conditions. In other words, if the condition would change, it would be easy to feel differently. And to ask someone to paint the picture for you is almost like changing the condition so that you can feel differently. Are you getting? In other words, to ask us to give you reason to love your brother, we want to say, love your brother because you're a lover. That's as much as we want to give you. Love your brother because you are one who loves, and when you don't love for any reason, no matter how valid you think the reason is, you're not being who you are. So don't love your brother because he's lovable. Love your brother because you are a lover.
Let me take a leap of honesty here. I'm not that good. I want to love my brother so that the papers can be rearranged.
Oh, we know that. But in other words, we talked about that earlier. I'll go to the vortex if it'll help me get out of this mess. I'll become the lover that I am if it will help fix the condition that makes me not able to love. And we say, feel the backward motion of that spiral. Let's see, I'm standing over here, I want to be over there, and the reason I want to be over there is so what's over here will improve for me. And we say you can't get there from there. You want to love your brother because you are a lover. And we in other words, so the scenario goes, Abraham, I think my brother influenced my mother to something that she wouldn't have done without his influence, and I think that I have been left out of something that I feel entitled to, and therefore I'm not in the vortex.
Boy, you know a lot, don't you?
And we say, well, you're not in the vortex, and that's your excuse right now, but don't be conditionally in the vortex, and don't go to the vortex in order to improve conditions. Can you hear the difference? A lot of people come to gatherings like this. I will learn these screwy processes that Abraham offers if it will help me get what I want. And we say, you can't get there from there. You have to want to do the screwy processes because you want to align with who you are. And in aligning with who you are, everything that you want will come to you.
So, love your brother because you're a lover, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the papers will remain what they may be. And I'm not sure what they
love.
are. Unconditional.
Jerry and Esther said to someone lately, no strings attached. No strings. And that was their way of saying unconditionally. In other words, we're not asking for something back from you in response to this. This is what it is.
So that's where the vortex is, and that's where downstream is love him unconditionally and leave the outcome is irrelevant.
Love because it hurts not to. Love because it's not normal not to. Love because the larger part of you does, and when the rest of you doesn't, you feel awful. Love because you selfishly want to feel good. Love because anything less than that is an anomaly of who you are. We never say love because they're performing lovable things, because that's conditional love, and it will trap you, you see. Now, just to help it along, we can say to you that someone who behaves in a deliberately unlovable way because they're selfishly trying to benefit themselves, and they believe that there's not enough to go around, and so to get what they want, they deliberately try to deprive someone else. That's really what's bothering you about this, your belief in shortage. Now, we're going to tell you a story or two just to sort of warm you up to this. One day, a woman was talking about her husband, her current husband, who had been married before to another woman. And he was paying alimony and child support to this woman. And every time he would make more money, she would petition the courts and get more money. So it felt to them like they could never get ahead, because every time they got ahead, she wanted more. And they wanted to know what we thought about it, what they could do. And we said, it would be really nice if he had 10 ex-wives who were all doing that to him. And the woman was shocked. She could not understand why we would be so mean or so silly. She could not imagine how that would make her life better. And we said, well, it works this way. When he desires dollars in order to support two families, he summons those dollars because his desire summons them. And so he summons dollars and she takes half and he's left with half. And if there were 10 of them, he would summon 10 times as much and they would only take half. So he would be way ahead in the long run. Well, she still couldn't understand what we were saying because she didn't understand something that we know. And that is that the money that comes to you doesn't come in relationship to anything other than your personal desire and your personal allowing. There is not a finite stack of money. Even though it feels like there's a finite amount of money in this estate, we want you to understand that if you don't let someone, even if it's true, whether it's true or not, if you don't let your perception of someone's messing with this money be your excuse not to go to the vortex, then you won't pinch off the stream of money that's already on its way to you. In other words, far more money will flow to you when there's love in your heart, which means you're in the vortex, than what you can eke out of a situation like this, you see. Belief in shortage is why it feels so bad to have these thoughts. Because the source within you does not believe in shortage. And when you do, you get separated from your source, and then you think you're not loving your brother. That's not the pain you're feeling. It's belief in lack that doesn't exist that is the pain you're feeling.
Oddly enough, I get it.
We felt you get it. Now here's another piece to this that will soften it a little bit. So isn't it nice, in other words, isn't it nice that someone like a loving brother could knowingly or unknowingly behave in a way that the condition of his behavior is hard to take? Which means he's giving you an opportunity, if you will seize it, to be who you are rather than wait for him to behave in a way that you can have a positive knee-jerk response. It's really funny. So many people are running around not feeling good and mad at others because they're not standing on their head to make them feel good. Entertain me with positive conditions, you say to everyone. And if you don't, then you say, you're depriving me of my alignment. So isn't it nice to have someone who finally does not give you a knee-jerk positive response? Isn't it nice that if you're going to get a positive response, you're going to have to do it the way that all positive response comes, by lining up with who you really are and what you want? And when you figure this out, you see, you won't just go to the vortex and reap the benefit of that. You'll reap the benefit of everything that you've put in the vortex that you've been depriving yourself of. Because if you're living a conditional love with one person, very good possibility that you're living it with that one and 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 that one. So isn't it nice to finally have one that's big enough? In other words, you want to love your brother and you want to love your mother. You want to be in the vortex and you want to be in alignment and you want to be who you are. And why not just start with this one?
I know I'm on the right path, and it's because of your teachings, and this feels very good.
Well, the big thing, you know, and we know you know it, and we're going to speak it back to you because you said it, but we want to amplify it in a really big way. Because this is the thing that trips almost everybody up and keeps them from getting into the vortex and allowing themselves to be all that life has caused them to be. When you go to the vortex in order to improve a condition, it's the wrong reason. Even though the condition will improve once you're in the vortex, if that's your reason for going, it's the wrong reason. Because it comes back and bites you. When you say, I need to improve this situation, so I'll go to the vortex, but the situation is as it is, now you just keep activating the situation as it is, and you keep activating that aggravating vibration, which doesn't let you go to the vortex. In other words, you can't get into the vortex when you have the ulterior motive of trying to improve a situation. Isn't that helpful? Every single one of you had something that you were willing to go to the vortex for. I'll go because then I'll find my lover. I'll go because then my money will flow better. I'll go because then my body will be improved. And we say, go because it's where you belong. Go because it's who you are. Go because it's who the larger part of you is, and go. And here's the thing that we find this piece, and it will click right into place for you. Every single thing that every one of you wants or ever has wanted, no matter what it is, a relationship, a material object, a thing, a pile of money, a circumstance, an event, every single thing that everyone wants, you want it because you think you will feel better in the having of it. You think you will feel better in the having of it. So if you will go to the vortex for the reason of feeling better, for the reason of it's who you are, for the reason, and so think about what we just said. The reason that you think you will feel better is because in not going you don't feel good. Can you see how it all fits together? The negative emotion only exists because you've expanded and didn't let yourself go. That's the only reason you don't feel good.